As the sun beat down on the quiet suburban street, a lone figure emerged from the shadows, baseball bat in hand. The rhythmic thud of the bat shattering ceramic echoed through the air, shards exploding in all directions as my precious flowers were ruthlessly destroyed. And through it all, my young children watched in stunned silence, their innocent eyes witnessing an act of senseless cruelty. My heart pounded in my chest as I rushed outside, the sound of breaking pottery shattering the peaceful morning. There, standing in my flower bed, was the hulking figure of my HOA president, his face twisted in a cruel sneer as he swung the bat again and again. "What the hell are you doing?" I shouted, my voice cracking with a mixture of fear and rage. The HOA president paused, turning to face me. "Your flowers are in violation of the neighborhood code," he growled. "I'm just taking care of the problem." I stared at him in disbelief, my gaze shifting to my two young children, who huddled on the porch, their eyes wide with terror. "In front of my kids? Are you insane?" "Rules are rules," he sneered, raising the bat once more. "If you just followed them in the first place, this wouldn't be happening." I stepped forward, my hands clenched into fists. "You're not going to destroy my property in front of my family. Get off my land, now." The HOA president's eyes narrowed, and for a moment, I thought he might swing the bat at me. But then, a sudden movement caught his eye, and he turned to see my neighbor, Mr. Johnson, hurrying towards us, his own baseball bat in hand. "What's going on here?" Mr. Johnson demanded, his voice sharp and authoritative. The HOA president hesitated, his grip on the bat loosening. "This is none of your business, Johnson. I'm just enforcing the neighborhood code." Mr. Johnson planted himself firmly between the HOA president and my flower bed, his bat raised in a defensive stance. "I think it becomes my business when you're terrorizing a family in broad daylight. Now, I suggest you leave before this gets any worse." The two men stare each other down, the tension thick enough to cut with a knife. I held my breath, waiting to see who would make the next move. Finally, the HOA president let out a frustrated sigh and turned to leave, muttering under his breath. As he stalked away, I felt a surge of relief, quickly replaced by a sense of dread. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. As the HOA president disappeared down the street, I rushed to my children, pulling them into a tight embrace. They clung to me, trembling, their faces pale with fear. It's okay," I soothed, my voice shaking. "He's gone now. You're safe." Mr. Johnson approached, his brow furrowed with concern. "Are you and the kids all right?" he asked, his gaze moving from the shattered flower pots to my children. I nodded, trying to steady my nerves. I think so. Thank you for stepping in. I don't know what he would have done if you hadn't shown up." Mr. Johnson placed a reassuring hand on my shoulder. "Don't worry, I've got your back. That man has been a thorn in all our sides for years. I won't let him bully you like this." I felt a surge of gratitude towards my neighbor. Mr. Johnson had always been a kind and dependable presence in the neighborhood, but this act of bravery and selflessness made me see him in a new light. "I don't understand," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Why would he do this? In front of my kids, no less." Mr. Johnson shook his head, his expression darkening. "The HOA has always been a source of trouble around here, but this is a new low, even for them. I'm sorry you and your family had to experience this." I looked down at the broken shards of pottery, my heart sinking. These were the flowers I planted with my children. We worked so hard on them, and now, my voice trailed off, the lump in my throat threatening to choke me. Mr. Johnson's face softened with sympathy. "I'll help you clean this up, and we can replant the flowers together. And don't worry, I'll be keeping a close eye on that HOA president. If he so much as sets foot on your property again, I'll be there to stop him." I nodded gratefully, feeling a sense of relief wash over me. With Mr. Johnson's support, I knew I wouldn't have to face this alone. But deep down, I couldn't shake the uneasy feeling that this was only the beginning of a much larger battle. Later that evening, as I tucked my children into bed, the events of the day weighed heavily on my mind. Their faces were still etched with fear. The trauma of witnessing the HOA president's violent outburst seared into their memories. "Mommy, why did that man do that?" my youngest asked, her voice small and uncertain. I smoothed her hair, forcing a reassuring smile. "He was just being very mean and didn't understand how special our flowers are to us. But Mr. Johnson made him leave, and he won't be coming back, I promise." My older child, who had been silent throughout the ordeal, finally spoke up. "I'm scared, Mommy. What if he comes back? What if he hurts us?" My heart sank as I pulled them both into a tight embrace. "I won't let that happen, I swear. Mr. Johnson is going to make sure that man stays away, and I'm going to do everything I can to protect you." As I held my children, a fierce determination began to swell within me. No one was going to terrorize my family and get away with it. Not if I had anything to say about it. The HOA president had crossed a line, and now he was going to pay the price. The next morning, I marched down to the HOA office, my fists clenched and my jaw set. The timid-looking secretary eyed me warily as I stormed in. "I need to speak to the HOA president, immediately," I demanded, my voice trembling with barely contained rage. I'm sorry, ma'am, but he's not in today," the secretary stammered. "Is there something I can help you with?" I slammed my palms down on the counter, causing the woman to jump. "No, there's nothing you can do. I need to speak to him, face to face, and I need it to happen today. This is not up for discussion." The secretary hesitated for a moment, then nodded reluctantly. "All right, I'll see what I can do. Please have a seat, and I'll let you know as soon as he's available." As I waited, my mind raced with 1,000 different scenarios, each one more satisfying than the last. This time, I wouldn't be the victim. This time, I was going to fight back. After what felt like an eternity, the secretary finally called me into the HOA president's office. The man himself sat behind the desk, his brow furrowed as he regarded me with a mixture of caution and annoyance. "Mrs. Langford," he began, his voice dripping with feigned concern. "I heard about the incident this morning. I must say, I'm quite surprised to see you here. I didn't waste any time with pleasantries." "Save it," I snapped, leaning forward in my chair. "You know exactly why I'm here, and you're going to listen to what I have to say." The HOA president's eyes narrowed, but he remained silent, gesturing for me to continue. "What you did this morning was unacceptable," I began, my voice trembling with barely contained fury. "Destroying my property in front of my children. That's a new low, even for you." He opened his mouth to speak, but I cut him off with a raised hand. "No, you don't get to interrupt me. I'm not done." Taking a deep breath, I plowed on. My flowers were not in violation of any code. They were beautiful, well-maintained, and brought joy to our entire neighborhood. But you, in your petty, power-hungry way, decided to take it upon yourself to destroy them. In front of my kids, no less. The HOA president shifted uncomfortably in his chair, his gaze darting around the room. "Mrs. Langford, I was simply doing my job as the HOA president. Those flowers were..." "Your job," I interrupted, my voice rising. "Your job is to maintain the common areas, collect dues, and ensure the neighborhood looks presentable. It is not your job to terrorize families and vandalize private property." I leaned forward, my eyes narrowing. "And let me make one thing very clear. If you ever come near my family or my home again, I will not hesitate to file a restraining order. Do you understand me?" The HOA president opened his mouth to respond, but before he could utter a word, I held up my hand. "Save it. I don't want to hear your excuses or your pathetic attempts at justification. Just stay away from us, or you'll regret the day you ever decided to cross me." With that, I stood and stormed out of the office, my heart pounding in my chest. I knew this wasn't the end of the battle, but at least I had made my position clear. The HOA president would think twice before trying to pull another stunt like that again. As I walked back home, I couldn't help but feel a sense of pride and determination. I was done being the victim. From now on, I was going to fight fire with fire. The confrontation with the HOA president left me feeling shaken, but also empowered. I knew that this was just the beginning of a much larger battle, and I was determined to come out on top. Over the next few days, I poured my heart and soul into researching the HOA's bylaws and regulations. I combed through every page, looking for any loopholes or inconsistencies that I could use to my advantage. As I delved deeper, a troubling pattern began to emerge. The HOA president, it seemed, had a long history of abusing his power and using intimidation tactics to get his way. Several of my neighbors had similar stories of run-ins with the man, each one more disturbing than the last. Fueled by a renewed sense of purpose, I began reaching out to the other homeowners, organizing a meeting to discuss our options. To my surprise, the turnout was overwhelming. It seemed that I wasn't the only one who had had enough of the HOA's tyrannical rule. One by one, my neighbors shared their stories, each one more harrowing than the last. The HOA president had threatened to fine them for having the wrong type of flowers or for leaving their garbage cans out a few minutes too long. In one case, he had even called the police on a family for hosting a small birthday party in their own backyard. As I listened to these accounts, a plan began to form in my mind. I knew that taking on the HOA president alone would be a daunting task, but with the support of my community, we just might have a chance. We need to file a formal complaint with the state, I announced, my voice carrying across the room. And we need to do it together as a united front. This man has been abusing his power for far too long, and it's time we put a stop to it. The room erupted in cheers and applause, and I knew that I had found my allies in this fight. With the backing of my neighbors, I felt a newfound sense of confidence and determination. The HOA president was about to meet his match. In the days that followed, our small group of disgruntled homeowners worked tirelessly to build our case against the HOA president. We pored over documents, gathered witness statements, and carefully documented every instance of abuse and misconduct. The more we uncovered, the more our resolve hardened. This was no longer just about my destroyed flower pots. It was about standing up for the rights of our entire community. As we prepared to file our formal complaint, the HOA president caught wind of our plans. Sensing the impending threat to his power, he launched a relentless campaign of intimidation, targeting those who had spoken out against him. Neighbors suddenly found themselves facing hefty fines for minor infractions or received threatening letters warning them to stay in line. Some even reported strange incidents, like finding their cars vandalized or their pets going missing. I watched in horror as my friends and neighbors were terrorized, their lives turned upside down by the HOA president's ruthless tactics. But instead of backing down, it only fueled our determination to see this through. With the support of a local advocacy group, we filed our complaint with the state, detailing the HOA president's abuses and demanding his immediate removal from office. The case quickly gained media attention, and soon, our fight became the talk of the entire community. As the pressure mounted, the HOA president's allies began to distance themselves, unwilling to be associated with his increasingly erratic and desperate behavior. He lashed out, hurling insults and threats, but we stood firm, united in our cause. Finally, after weeks of intense scrutiny and public outcry, the state issued its ruling. The HOA president was stripped of his position and ordered to pay restitution to the affected homeowners. It was a resounding victory, not just for me, but for our entire neighborhood. As I watched the disgraced former HOA president being escorted from the premises, a sense of relief and triumph washed over me. My children, who had once been terrified, now beamed with pride, knowing that their family had stood up to the bully and won. This was just the beginning, I knew. The fight for our community's rights was far from over, But today, we'd had taken a significant step forward, and I couldn't wait to see what else we could accomplish. In the aftermath of the HOA president's downfall, our community experienced a profound shift. The once stifling atmosphere of fear and oppression had been replaced by a newfound sense of empowerment and camaraderie. As we celebrated our victory, neighbors who had once kept to themselves began to reach out, eager to connect and support one another. Block parties and community gatherings became the norm as we worked to rebuild the sense of unity that had been so badly eroded under the HOA's reign. But with the HOA president's removal, a new challenge emerged, filling the power vacuum he had left behind. The position remained vacant for weeks, with no one willing to step forward and take on the responsibility. The thought of another tyrant emerging from the shadows weighed heavily on all our minds. Finally, after much deliberation, a group of us, myself included, decided to step up and volunteer for the HOA board. We knew that if we wanted to truly transform our community, we would need to be the ones to shape its future. The election process was arduous, with the former HOA president and his supporters doing everything in their power to undermine our efforts. But with the unwavering support of our neighbors, we prevailed, securing a majority on the board. As I took my seat at the first official meeting, I couldn't help but feel a sense of both excitement and trepidation. The weight of our responsibility was palpable, but we were determined to use our newfound power to create real, lasting change. One of our first orders of business was to review and revise the HOA's bylaws, ensuring that they were fair, transparent, and protected the rights of all homeowners. We also implemented strict guidelines to prevent any single individual from accumulating too much control. But our work didn't stop there. We launched initiatives to improve the neighborhood's infrastructure, beautify the common areas, and foster a greater sense of community. Suddenly, the HOA was no longer a source of fear and frustration, but a tool for positive change. As I walked through the streets, admiring the newly planted flower beds and the children playing in the park, I couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. This was our community, and we were the ones shaping its future. The battle may have been won, but the war for our neighborhood's soul was far from over. Still, I knew that with the support of my fellow homeowners, we were more than ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. As the sun began to set on our transformed neighborhood, I stood in my newly replanted garden, admiring the vibrant blooms that swayed gently in the evening breeze. The shattered remnants of the destroyed flower pots had long since been cleared away, replaced by a thriving display of color and life. It had been a long and arduous journey, but we had emerged victorious. The HOA, once a symbol of oppression and tyranny, had been reformed into an agent of positive change, thanks to the unwavering determination and collective efforts of our community. I glanced over to where my children were playing, their laughter filling the air. Gone was the fear and uncertainty that had once gripped them. In its place, a sense of security and belonging. This was their home, and they knew it was safe. As I watched them, a sense of profound gratitude washed over me. We had fought for more than just a few flower pots. We had fought for the very soul of our neighborhood, and we had won. The HOA president, once a towering figure of dread and intimidation, had been reduced to a mere footnote in our community's history. His downfall had sparked a ripple effect, inspiring others to stand up and demand better for their homes and families. And now, as I looked around at the thriving, vibrant neighborhood that we had built together, I knew that our work was far from over. There would always be new challenges to face, new battles to be fought. But with the strength and unity of our community behind us, I knew that we were more than ready to take them on. This was our home, and we were the ones who would shape its future. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, I couldn't help but feel a deep sense of pride and hope for what we had accomplished, and for all that was yet to come.